Hi all, and welcome back. After our little summer break, I'm glad that you find the way back to our CSA live webinar, and we have a real certification talk today with Guy Hanson from Validity and our technical team lead, Zeb. But before we start, brief to my person. My name is Maike, and I'm responsible for the marketing activities and all the events at the CSA. And today I'm just in the background here for your questions and your support. Maybe you have questions about the tool, about GoToWebinar, or directly to the CSA, or I don't know, just ask me. I'm here in the background for your support today. And I think you all know the CSA, but just some short sentence. We act as a neutral interface between mailbox providers and senders of commercial emailing. Our goal is to increase the quality of commercial emailing. To achieve this goal, we set up technical and legal quality standards in cooperation with our certified senders and our partners. So if you want to get more information about the CSA and our daily work and how we can support your business, just contact us after the webinar and we'll be happy to share all the information you need to know about the CSA. We have official partners during the year doing the CSA live webinars. We have Dimarshan, Harlong, and Kickbox. Thank you for your huge support during the whole year. And if you want to get more information about them, just download the sponsor booklet. It might be on the right on your screen in the download section. Download it and contact our partners. And of course, we have some housekeeping rules today. Please note you're muted during the whole webinar. But we have two options today for you. The first option is you can ask your question live. Just raise your hand, ask your question, and Zeb and Guy will answer your question. Or use the chat function, send them to organizer, and we'll read out your question and answer afterwards your question. So it's up to you how you want to ask, but feel free to ask, and we would be happy if you use the function with raise up your hand. And now, I'm glad I can hand over to Guy and Sebastian. And yeah, I wish you a lot of fun, and you will hear me and see me at the end of the session again.
Okay, here we are. I hope everyone can hear us. Mike, I think you need to stop sharing.
I think I stopped it, or?
I can still see a chart. Yes.
No? Okay, sorry.
No, now it came back.
Why?
I don't know. Yes. That looks good.
Okay, cool. So you can start. Sorry.
Thank you for the intro. Guy.
Hey.
Back again. I'm really happy, and you're welcome to be a guest to a CSA webinar. The very first.
It's such a pleasure to be here. I think you know, we've been talking about doing this for ages, so long overdue, but great that we finally got our act together, and so pleased to be doing this with you this afternoon.
Right, I can remember where it all started. It has been a Roadmaster in London on the way to an event, on the CSA event. So yeah, long time overdue. But to the ones in the audience group who do not know each other, Guy, would you love to just give yourself a short intro to the ones who don't know you?
I'd be delighted. So I've now been in the world of email marketing for slightly over 20 years. I think, as you guys can see, I've got the gray hairs to prove it, and you know, a lot of that has come from the stress and grief that deliverability's given me over the last 2 decades. My specific introduction to deliverability came when I moved out of the agency world and joined ReturnPath all the way back in 2011, and I spent the next 8 years or so building and running their global professional services consulting team, which of course is where we got to meet all those years ago.
That's right.
Since the Validity acquisition of ReturnPath, my role has shifted a little bit, and a large part of what I do these days is driving Validity's thought leadership. I run their State of Email webinar series, their Email After Hours podcast series, do a fair bit of event speaking as well. And recently I've taken over partner management for UK and EMEA. So a number of overlaps, in terms of your role and mine. Probably the last piece there, I've also had a long time association with the DMA, the Data and Marketing Association, specifically their email council in the UK. Currently the vice chair of that body, and each year we produce some of the industry research that comes out of that body. So that's me. That's the elevator pitch all about Guy.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and to the ones who don't know me, I can't count more than 20 years on my bucket list. Maybe my hair is a little bit colored, though I don't know. This may be the proof for that. But anyway, I'm in that business for a long time as well. For the one who don't know me, I've been working for ESPs in the past, for brands as well. And yeah, for sure, I've been part of Guy's team back in the days of Return Pass. And since that happened, email certification caught me. And when I left Return Path, I went to the CSA. So doing still the same business, certification, which I'm all about. And I'm into standards. I'm into quality of email traffic, and that's what we both share. And this may be one. And yeah, since I joined the CSA, I'm leading the technical department of the CSA. So being responsible for technical tools that we provide, data that we provide, and yeah, helping our senders in support when it comes to deliverability issues or when it comes to the technical certification pieces. But that leads to the very first question that some of you in the audience may have. Isn't CSA and Validity competitors to each other? And why do you guys meet up in a webinar? Guy, why do we do that here?
I think partly, seriously, it's about you and me and our relationship. I think, as we were explaining in the intro there, we've known each other a long time now. I mean, remind me, I think we go back to sort of 2014 or so. That's right. And I would like to say that, over that time, we've grown to know each other as industry professionals. I think there's a lot of mutual respect between the two of us. I'd like to say that, we definitely like each other, we trust each other, we respect each other's opinions. And I think, that's a good foundation for a conversation like today's. I think for me, it makes perfect sense, at least in part, because as we were explaining when we were doing the introductions, you've been on both sides of the fence. You spent a number of years working for Return Path at the time. You've now been with the CSA for the past few years. I think you as an individual have a very unique view of today's topic. And I think, as you and I discussed today, for sure, there's definitely some overlap between our organizations. That's okay. I think that's healthy. I think, as we'll discuss today, we do solve for slightly different challenges in some respects. I think the reality is that we're probably most effective in slightly different parts of the email landscape. But at the end of the day, as we'll highlight later, there are many, many email programs that benefit from their relationships with both of us. And I think, at the end of the day, you and I, we're both passionate about the email channel. I think we've both got a shared desire, genuinely, to try and help the world send better email. And I think for all of those reasons, it feels very natural to me that we should be doing a joint webinar together today.
That's right. And the idea behind that was, let's keep that whole business piece aside, because what we have in common is the topic certification. And both of us are challenged with how do we get email standards implemented on the other side, on the sender side? Because what is expected on the other side from the senders is, I want my emails get into the inbox, delivered into the inbox. And that only works together if everyone on both sides is doing their job. So senders need to comply to standards, need to commit to real best practice living. And mailbox providers need to agree and commit to that idea as well, and trust those sources of certification. And the big question that I would love to tackle with you today is, what is that certification piece about? It is a great buzzword, and what we really live in marketing is living with buzzwords and using buzzwords. But I would love to spend this webinar to clarify, okay, what is certification and the background of it, to make it clear, and also maybe, yeah, clarify some myths on it. So the key question, what is certification about?
I feel like you just answered that question in one word about 2 sentences ago, because certification is about trust. We're going to mention trust a lot today, but that's the answer. I mean, you know, we've solved it all. We can finish the webinar and go and have a beer now. So we're all good.
Cheers.
But more seriously, I think here's how I think about it. You know, still today on most emails, somewhere in the email header or footer, you'll see that statement of, we want to make sure you receive our emails. Please add us, the sender, to your trusted senders list, to your address book. And the reason for that request is, you know, you're effectively establishing a bond of trust between you and that sender. You know, by doing that, you're saying, yep, this is a sender I trust. I want to receive their emails. And based on that, you know, future emails from that sender will automatically go to your inbox. And at the end of the day, you know, that's the principle of certification, except that it only happens at a one-to-one level. And you know, even the best email programs, you know, if they're lucky, will probably get up to 5% or perhaps 10% of their subscribers over their subscriber lifetime going, yep, please add us to your trusted senders list, etc. So I guess, you know, from the perspective of certification as we're talking about it today, it's how do you achieve that at scale? You know, how can you achieve it for an entire program rather than for individual who are receiving the marketing emails? And I guess, you know, when we think about how filtering companies and anti-spam vendors think about email marketing, you know how it is. We've both spoken to a lot of them over the years, and you know, a common comment will be, you know, that they don't have a problem with email marketing per se, you know, especially legitimate permission-based email marketing. But their primary loyalty is to their customers, you know, protecting them from any kind of malicious or harmful activity that they might receive. And a lot of the filtering and the safeguards which they construct are designed to prevent that from happening to their customers. And more often than not, you know, when legitimate permission-based email marketing programs run foul of those checks and balances, it's because, unfortunately, whether intentionally or not, they look a little bit like the spammers or scammers that those checks and balances have been designed to capture. And, you know, I remember speaking to Matt Steeth at Spamhaus a few months ago, and his advice was simple. You know, if you don't want to get caught out by filters, don't look like a spammer, which makes it sound really, really easy. But of course, it's not that easy, because false positives do happen. And, you know, legitimate senders do occasionally get caught out by their rules, and their emails get blocked or rejected, or they get placed in the spam folder or the junk folder. And I guess this is quite a long way of saying, you know, this is when certification comes into play. You know, it's about establishing a trusted relationship between the email programs that are sending those emails, and the mailbox providers that receive them, so that those emails are seen to be good actors, and making sure that those false positive identifications don't happen, or at the very least are reduced. And I think a key part of what is certification about is the conversation you and I have had many, many times, the difference between delivery and deliverability, and, delivery, of course, is effectively the difference between emails sent and emails bounced, your accepted rate. And most deliverability teams can control that, if they've got their authentication in place and good email hygiene practices and, bounce management's working like it should, delivery is going to be great. The latter, deliverability, I feel like it's far more about the relationship directly between the email programs that are sending those emails and the customers that are receiving them. And the program that's sending them can control that to an extent by their practices. So frequency, volume, relevance, and offers. And the recipients also control that relationship through the way they engage with those emails. Do they open them? Do they engage with them? Do they delete them? Do they hit the mark as spam button? And this is where certification comes into play, because you think about the way mailbox providers work. If they are certain that an email's bad, they're not going to mess around. They're going to reject it outright. But there's a lot of traffic which they look at and they're thinking, it's probably legitimate, but we're not entirely sure whether that recipient wants to see it or not. And wherever there's that element of doubt, put it in the spam folder. The recipient can make up their mind. If they really wanted it, they'll go and find it. They'll go and pull it out. And for me, this is probably where certification has the biggest role, helping to establish the credentials of those senders so that there is no doubt. The spam folder is like the twilight zone of the world of email. And, certification's about making sure your legitimate and permission-based marketing emails don't end up in that twilight zone. I'll pause for a second. That's my take on what certification's about. What do you think?
I would love to add up some non-technical aspects to it. And there was something enlightening in one of the past MARC conferences that I joined, where I got feedback from a mailbox provider. Apart from the technical checks that every security vendor or mailbox provider is able to do themselves, so authentication and spam complaint measurements and all that kind of stuff, it is, and I didn't know that, I was surprised about it, it is getting to know or getting the confirmation from a third party like us to say, okay, this is a mass email sender, this is the mass email sending entity, and this is the whole network, without even getting one email into their inbox. It's just getting to know it in advance. They can figure it out themselves, looking at their data, analyze it, and when the first 100,000 emails have already been entered their system, they may recognize, okay, it could be a legitimate sender. But if a mass email sender upfront clearly states, okay, I'm committing to these best practices, it already creates and provides credits of trust to the mailbox providers. They don't need to ask themselves, is that something we should trust, we can trust? There is the trust level already installed, and that's what both of us have in common, and that's what certification is about. That clear commitment level, and it also plays back that all the different market players who are certified take some kind of digital responsibility, because what all of them have in common is say, okay, we want to differentiate ourselves against either real spammers or perceived spammers. And that is the big difference to that. And to be very honest, mailbox, and that's a great gift that mailbox providers help us with their data feedback that we both use in our tools to say, okay, this is where you need to do better. because you've got too many spam trap hits, you've got too many complaints. And mailbox providers wouldn't just share these secret source information to any untrusted party. So there needs to be the confirmation that at least the ones who are sitting on that table and sharing that ecosystem know each other face to face. So if I would sit behind the wall and I'm just ensuring you, guy, I'm the good one, I do all good things, would you trust me? But it becomes a completely different story when we sit against each other, look into each other's eyes, and give that confirmation. And that is beyond or above all technical levels first. That initial level of trust that needs to be implemented. That's what is certification for me, which is very intrinsic. But that includes also a challenge, because when we talk about email marketing, for sure, we talk about commercial success. And that's the balance. The certification standard and the certification standards need to manage as well. I know mailbox providers who are really tough and say, okay, we wouldn't be part of any certification program because you are too weak. And I as well know senders who say, okay, the certification standards that you are defining, they are not achievable at all. And in between that, we both try to position the certification to add value to both sides, to both parties. And when you look back into the history where it all started, I mean, the CSA has been founded in 2004. And to me, certification becomes more and more important because since 2004, it's nearly 20 years, the email market grew, I don't know, by 1,000%, 10,000%. And so it needs even more trust. And I think we can still play a big role and help mailbox providers out there to more distinguish. I mean, how fast is that ESPs appear on the market? It is not the question of years of development anymore. With cloud services, with plug and play sending services, an ESP can just be there in, I don't know, a few months' time. But how can a mailbox provider trust those new ESPs and new market players? And I think that's the vital role that is becoming much more important. Initially, there has been just a bright idea. There have been a few senders who wanted to be in the inbox. I know. I mean, it's a myth and not a secret anymore. Everybody expected to have 100% inbox delivery, right? Maybe back in 2004, it would have been possible. I don't know if it has been the case, but in between, it definitely changed. And so this level of trust and the data feedback and the ability to use the certification umbrella to train and coach mass email senders to do better and figure out their weaknesses and vulnerability. That's the core, in my opinion. That leads me to, from your point of view, do we have fundamental principles for email certification that everyone needs to be aware of, that is kind of set in stone? We don't have legal legislation about certification at all, but do you have some of these stuff in mind where we say, okay, this is fundamental stuff that needs to be in a row?
You know, I think listening to you talk over the last couple of minutes, you know, we've spoken about the importance of trust. And I suppose one key question, you know, when it comes to building trust is transparency, another word that starts with a capital T. And, you know, it's important because you and I have spoken before about, what I think we commonly term the GDPR halo effect, and that a lot of email marketing programs, especially in Europe, the ones that embraced GDPR as an opportunity have seen significantly improved performance over the 4 or 5 years since then. And it kind of stands to reason, doesn't it? Because, from an email point of view, what GDPR did was it took a lot of established best practices and it turned them into law. And so, suddenly the idea of, guess what, we're going to bake a higher level of consent into your acquisition. And we're going to make sure that you provide your customers with more choice about what they receive from you and how frequently. And we're going to be more transparent about what we send them in the first place. And we're going to make it really easy to opt out. Guess what? Program performance is going to improve, from embracing those principles. And I think, certainly as I speak to some of our customers in the US, especially in states where, sort of new generation GDPR style laws haven't arrived yet, it's what are you waiting for? Why would you want to wait? Because it's going to be good for your program. So, I think that was a little bit off the cuff, but, it probably talks to, fundamental principles for email certification. I think, especially in terms of what we have in common, we both want to improve deliverability. I think we both want to reduce spam. And we want to help to build trusted relationships, that deliver these outcomes. And, that's going to be achieved by ensuring that there's commitment to those laws and standards and best practices that go the extra mile beyond just doing the bare minimum, that actually establish clear daylight between saying, this is the minimum level of expectation, and this is where you could be if you want to be seen as a truly world-class email marketing sender. So I think as we start to talk about principles, those are some of the ones that cross my mind.
That is 100% agreed from my side. And I was just a little smiling a few days ago where we all read, or maybe not all, but some of us all read about the announcement of Google in the whole term of no auth, no entry, that in the future, when you're not 100% authenticated and correctly authenticated, your emails will not get into the inbox anymore. And I was scratching my head and say, hey, come on, really? It's 2023. We've got DKIM in place 15 years, something like that, 10 years, 12, 15 years, SPF even longer. And really, in 2023, the decision about 100% accuracy of authentication has been done. And that made me a little smiling and laughing about some senders who have been criticizing us for our tough criteria in the past, where we've always been that picky and you need to have SPF, you need to have DKIM. And I can just remember discussions back in the days, 2 years ago, where we implemented DKIM alignment. And so we have, to be very honest, we have been our times ahead. We've seen and comparing the situation right now, and that's the payback, or is it payback the right word in English? I don't know. But now it's paying back the credits. The ones that are certified for years have authentication in place. So it was an investment in the future, which means all the tough certification criteria for me is a look into the glass bowl and help senders in advance to be prepared for the future, to what you say, go the extra mile. And if you go the extra mile, you're already one step ahead. Certified senders in any way don't need to think about, do I have that authentication in place? Yes, you have, because otherwise you wouldn't be certified. So this whole discussion about no auth, no entry is not a discussion for you. This is about this gray area, questionable mass email senders who do not commit to certification. And to a certain extent, the benefits is you don't need to invest right now in any updates or being fast because you have been delivered into Gmail or whatever other inbox. And to be very honest, we can't, and that's what I see us, a big difference to best practice blog posts and recommendations and whatever. We are enforcing using the standards. We know about the best practices are written everywhere and anybody can use them, but only certification programs say you have to use them for the expectations you have. If you have the expectation to get delivered into the inbox, don't verbally commit to best practices, show it by implementing them. So live the best practices. And that's what we're doing here.
100%. Put your money where your mouth is.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then it comes to what are the benefits? And I mean, the benefits are clear if you ask me, and if all certified senders take those criteria and certification rules for granted and take them serious, they are delivered into the inbox. It's a no-brainer. We don't need any tricks to be delivered in the inbox. All the mailbox providers are asking for is, guys, please follow the standards. And the standards are written down in our certification catalogs. When you follow them, you will be delivered into the inbox. And you have an increase of your commercial success. And you've got a great gift. And this is data feedback. And we need data to manage deliverability best. And I don't know if you know the comment of one of our highly valued client in the past who said, hey, I'm not being certified for inbox delivery because I follow best practices. I've got all my sheeps in a row. But the great gift is the data, and I can monitor that I'm right with the stuff that I'm doing. And I see those spikes and anomalies that I need to jump in and correct when some things happen. And that was very enlightening to me, that the biggest value is exactly that. Make it measurable, make it possible to prove that I'm following best practices. If my inbox rate is going down, my spam rate is going up, my spam trap hit rate, whatever is going up, then I'm doing something wrong. And that's where the deliverability managers start to adjust.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes it's a education process with our clients, sort of helping them understand the value of that data that they're getting, because I think it's sometimes easy to forget that certification is a two-way relationship. It's not just representing the email senders to the mailbox providers and going, please treat them nicely. It's also the mailbox providers going, right, because you are a trusted entity in our world, we're going to give you some useful information that helps you better understand how we see you as a sender, why we're treating your emails in the way that you do. And I think sophisticated email programs absolutely get that. And I think, with the guidance of businesses like yours and mine, you help them to understand how to interpret that data and how to act on it. And, that's part of the ongoing process of improvement. And I think, don't get us wrong, the obvious benefit is that certified programs do get better deliverability as measured by inbox placement. And we've done some analysis. I think we're in a happy position that not all Validity customers are certified customers, so we can compare performance between the ones that are and the ones that aren't. And there's a deliverability premium of about 11% between the certified ones and the non-certified ones. So there is a a hard benefit. And I think, most, not all, email programs are in it to generate revenue for their businesses, and that's a significant revenue benefit. I think, around the world, we sort of talk about what's the average revenue that a marketing email generates, and it varies from sector to sector and country to country. But if you say it's a broad band between about 5 cents and 15 cents per email in terms of the revenue it's likely to generate, and the average is sort of 9 or 10 cents, a 10% difference in your email deliverability and your inbox placement is going to be another $10,000 or euros or pounds for 10,000 emails that you're sending. So, that's absolutely there. But I think I fully agree with your point as well. That's the hard benefit. But, the soft benefits, the data that you were talking about, the fact that you have extra eyes on your program and, sort of giving you, a heads up, when you're sort of if ever you're in a position where there's a risk of, moving outside of those compliance metrics, and, that's valuable. And I think, it lends itself to a number of use cases, especially if you're a seasonal program where there's significant spikes in your activity, wanting that peace of mind as you go through those commercially critical periods of the year, like Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You've got to get a mandated mailing out because, you've had a change in terms and conditions, or you've got to get a legal notice out to your customers. Those are all reasons where you as a sender are gonna benefit.
Totally agree to that, and I think that already answers a question that was raised here. How does you convince marketing managers to change their email program, sending less volume, easier unsubscribe, and all these kind of stuff? So how make marketing managers, or getting marketing managers applying to those best practices exactly to what you're saying? So it pays back. It is at the very end just number crunching. What do I get out of it? And yeah, for sure, we saw it and we still see it, that the commercial success with the certification commitment stabilizes the business. I mean, that's the always asked question for even best in class senders, where they say, hey, come on, we see from our data that we're commercially successful. And we are getting delivered into the inbox. So why should we still be certified? And they may be true to some extent. But what we also see from the data is occasionally throughout the years, some campaigns may dip because of any external effect. Black Friday, for example, that's the most busiest, or became the most busiest day for mailbox providers. And mailbox providers don't care about, okay, yes, this e-commerce shop XYZ sends billions of emails, so we don't care about. In that situation of a Black Friday, mailbox provider is handling, I don't know, X times more than the average. And then they distinguish, and they need to load balance. And they do recognize that there are certified senders, and those certified senders get some preference because they stand out of that whole mass of everyone is doubling their traffic by this and wanted to squeeze out the last drop out of that stone called email marketing. At that busy time, mailbox providers need to distinguish, and we get that feeling, and we have that feedback from mailbox providers that they look at those flags as well. And there is a preference for certified senders to be not guaranteed delivery into the inbox, but any preferential handling, because it's known who is sending that email into the ecosystem.
Correct. And I'll offer you a sidebar comment about those, you call them external influences. And I think that's absolutely right. And earlier I talked about my long-time relationship with the DMA, and we produced a piece of research where one of the questions that was asked of consumers was, what makes you complain about the marketing emails that you receive? And a lot of the responses were the ones that you would expect. I get too many emails, or I don't remember signing up, or they're not relevant to me anymore. But there was also quite a lot of responses, approximately 1 in 6, saying things like, I went to visit one of the brand's stores and I had a crappy experience in the store. Or, you know, they're getting some really bad publicity in the press at the moment. And here's the thing, you know, here are external factors completely beyond the control of the email marketing manager, but that next time they send an email and it drops into that unhappy customer's inbox, that's their next touch point of the brand. So they take out their frustration or their annoyance on the email, generally in the form of a complaint or a deletion. And, you know, I feel like, you know, we sometimes talk about certification almost as some kind of insurance policy. And I think we certainly hear about that from a lot of our customers. You know, they talk about the hard benefits, you know, better deliverability and the rest of it, but they also talk about the peace of mind that it gives them. And, you know, I've literally heard comments about, I don't lie awake in my bed at night worrying about, you know, my inbox placement rate tanking, or more seriously, that, you know, because they're not spending half of every day doing deliverability troubleshooting, it frees up their time to be more productive, spending that time on more interesting and strategically focused aspects of their program that are ultimately going to generate more revenue for their businesses.
Right. And even on that insurance level, it is also the factor that I've been hearing a lot is, I mean, we're in email marketing. Sometimes you can be wrong with your strategic approach, right? And so failures happen, mistakes happen. It's just human. But within that trusted environment, it is okay to occasionally do mistakes. And the advantage within that certified environment is you get to know about it, so you can take action about it, and you can avoid the same mistake in the future. I mean, if you constantly repeat that stupid mistake, then you end up.
Well, then you deserve to get punished, yeah.
Right, exactly to that point. I would love to come back to something that you touched on, the educational and coaching piece. When you say, okay, occasionally, I sometimes have the feeling we do it on the daily basis, like a prayer, reading the Bible and repeating ourselves, talking about best practices. But what I like is we do it from different angles with the same mission. So what we do is we use the multiplier effect. So we monitor the ESPs, we certify the ESP platforms and saying them, hey, there you've got that brand XY that, who is maybe the black sheep within your client portfolio. Take that opportunity and coach that client, because this is the best practices they need to follow as well. And you do it on the other level. You train the ESP, the brands, and you coach the brands, hopefully in the understanding that a certified brand needs to send through a certified sender as well, because that's the perfect match. And then this prays back the 100% insurance to mailbox providers that every party is doing their job, because I think it's not a secret anymore that deliverability management is not just only with the ESP platforms. 50% of the rent is paid by the brand itself. You can set up high quality technical sending platforms, having every setting in place. If there is questionable, let me be diplomatic, questionable content sent out, or the data quality of an email list is questionable as well, you can do whatever you want within the deliverability management of an ESP. You will never get 100% inbox placement rate or even getting close to it.
No, that's right. And, you know, a slightly unscripted comment, but Tom Corbett from Iterable joined us for our podcast last week, and we were talking about that, you know, where the balance of responsibility sits between email service provider and the actual sender, you know, because they're often quite quick to blame each other in terms of who's supposed to do what. And we asked Tom what was some of the weirdest requests or expectations that he had ever heard from his customers. And he told us about one that was so fed up with the spam placement that they were seeing at Microsoft that they wanted him to ring Microsoft up and tell them that they were going to sue them. Good luck with that. And another that really didn't like the idea that their emails were going into Gmail's promotional tab, and they wanted Tom to phone up Gmail and say, listen, when I say so, can you start putting them in the primary tab, please? And, it all comes back to education here, because I think, both of those probably sit firmly with the sender.
I think what this very often showcases, and I hear myself very often in even prospect calls talking about, it is not just this criterion or that criterion. The education is more about it affects each other. So there is it is a complex model where every bit and piece need to fit into each other to get the real value out of certification. I can't just do the SPF and DKIM stuff and do not care about legal requirements for lead generation or having a lot of quality of lead generation sources and think it all goes automatically. No, it will not. It needs a proactive and yeah, how to say that, management on both sides. So it is active, visible, and on purpose oriented on the certification criterion. And what a big thing that we've been currently, I think, discussing in the market is especially to that, and I wasn't aware of it, and it just came up with that. In most cases, services like a feedback loop, for example, is currently a big discussion. A feedback loop, in the majority of cases, has been used for, I got the feedback loop request and I remove that that user from my list. And I would bet the minority of senders out there, whether it's brands or ESPs, are creating reports to say, okay, this is the rate of spam. It's just a list cleansing functionality, rather than taking this to analyze to what are the real root causes for those spam complaints. Just removing them is not enough. And this showcases that it is still, and it will still remain, education of the both of us to say, okay, don't have a look for the quick wins, because you get the payback maybe years later, like the Google example that we just see right now. So for the ones that have everything in a row, will not be affected. Right. And what we see as well, I mean, we also have certification in common. You serve brands that are sending through our platforms. Is that right, if I remember correctly?
Absolutely. And I think there are many examples of this. And, this comes back to your opening question, hey, two businesses that are sort of, perceived as being at least a little bit competitive to each other. Why are we doing a webinar together? And I think a key part of it is for exactly that point that you've just made. There is plenty of space on the deliverability landscape for us to both operate. And, let's think of some specific examples. Look at an email sending platform like a Marsis, for example, CSA accredited, and,
right.
They have great deliverability. They've got a great deliverability team. But more than just a handful of Marsis customers also certified with Validity Sender certification.
That's correct.
And they benefit from both of those. You look at a brand like West Wing, just to pick on an example, who use Map Digital, also CSA accredited. And, you speak to Magnus, that's responsible for their deliverability, and he will almost sing the praises of both. and the importance of both. And when he explains to you that the email channel is literally business critical to his company in terms of the importance, in terms of its capability as a revenue generating channel, then you understand why if he wants to, if we want to think about it as an insurance policy, well, let's have 2 insurance policies. Let's be doubly sure.
Right.
And there's many of those examples, Seb, of global email programs that rely on CSA and Validity sender certification to provide them, with that peace of mind and the great deliverability that's so critical for what they're doing.
Exactly to that point. I mean, we've got nearly 100 certified sender platforms certified who are transparently listed on our website. So it is not a secret for any brand what platforms are certified, whether or not. And this is the first approach I think everyone should take, and then go a step further and say, okay, what can I do as a brand to improve further? Because we ensure that the platform is compliant, that the technical foundation is set, just to ensure that mass emails are ending up to where they belong to, in the mailbox provider's ecosystem, and ideally in the inbox. But to the extent that there is the strategic and conceptual level on top that comes to email marketing, that is where the brand can be active and can clearly say, okay, I commit to this additional piece, and both together fit and ensure that on the long-term certification increases the commercial success and ensures and stabilizes the business and make it make the forecast easier. Right. We are nearly at the end. A question to you, maybe sneaky as well. Do you come across typical myth about certification? I do a lot. Do you have one or two typical anecdotes about that?
Yeah, plenty. But I think probably the most common one, and I'll just sort of set the scene because I think it's something that you encounter as well, is that our role when it comes to certification, we're almost like the middleman or the matchmaker. And on the one side, we're representing the parties that are responsible for sending email marketing, whether it's the email service provider or the brand themselves. And on the other side, we're representing the needs and interests of the receivers, the mailbox providers, but also the individual customers who are receiving those emails. And sometimes, as you all well know, those needs and interests are completely aligned, and our job is to try and help square that circle and sort of help the two connect. And especially at the moment, with the current economic climate the way that it is, that challenge has probably been exaggerated, because make no mistake, at the same time that consumers are definitely sitting on their wallets and reining in their spending, especially that disposable discretionary spending. And it's the same time that from an email marketing point of view, you've definitely got pressure coming from the C-level going, hey, that sort of, million inactive addresses that we've got and we haven't been sending to lately, but now would be a really good time to bring them out of retirement and see if we can squeeze some more revenue out of the program. And I think that's a long way of sort of, building up the story and saying that, probably the biggest certification myth that we regularly come across is that it's almost some kind of license to sort of throw all the established rules out the window and go, cool, now we can send 3 times as many emails as we were before, and we can send to all our disengaged, even if they haven't shown any signs of life for the last 3 years, kind of thing. No, that's not the case. The relationship of trust that we've established between you, the sender, and the mailbox providers as the recipient is based on the fact that you will continue to be a responsible citizen in the world of email marketing, and that you will continue to observe the laws and the standards and the best practices that have justified your status as a trusted sender and which are conferring those benefits on you. And if you're going to suddenly step outside of that, well, you're breaking that trusted relationship and you're going to forfeit the benefits that you would otherwise receive. So I think that, for me, is probably one of the biggest myths. No, certification is not a golden ticket to throw all of those, responsibilities out the window. What about you? What's your favorite myth?
My favorite method, and we have it very often on telephone, is we would love to get certified because we've got a real deliverability issues with many mailbox providers, and we hope it's going to be resolved. I mean, really, are you expecting that a certification program in any case will accept you when you're, I mean, there is a root cause why you're not delivered into the mailbox provider's ecosystem right now. And the question comes back to, I use that buzzword, best practices. Obviously, you are not using these best practices. So how can you be part of a certification process or program when you're not implementing them? Because the assignment into a certification program is an additional commitment. And you need to get your sheeps in a row first, figure out what you're doing wrong, because the best practices are obvious and the certification rules are existing and are not a secret at all. And afterwards, we are and you are, like I compared with the German TÜV. The German TÜV doesn't repair your car if the brakes are broken. Yes. It is just confirming, hey, you've got a perfect car and you can go down, that's our advantage in Germany, 250 kilometers per hour on the highway, but only with a safe car, right? There has been one last question come up here. Let me quickly read it out. Here's a question for Guy and Sebastian. If the sky were the limit and unicorns were real, what would they want from mailbox providers? What does the ideal collaboration looks like? Whoa, that's an unfair question, Marcel, because that needs us another hour.
Yes, I'm glad you name dropped that, because I'm sure he's got a very strong interest in hearing the answers.
Sure. In the last minute, any thoughts about that? Open, no limits, open sky. What is the wish?
I think, from a sender's point of view, they're always keen to understand why their emails have been treated in the way that they are. And we talked earlier about the importance of the data which is returned by some of the certification partners and how that can be used intelligently to drive program performance and improvement. I think any additional insight in terms of how to use that data, what's important, what's more important than, and what's less important, is always going to be very, very helpful. And I think one point that I'd make specific to, where the question came from, we did one of our Validity webinars last week, and we were talking about general trends in the deliverability landscape. And one of the ones which our ESP partners were talking about is there definitely seems to have been a shift on the part of the mailbox providers to provide more useful and more helpful information through their postmaster websites. And certainly over the last year, you've seen big improvements in postmaster sites, including Yahoo. And I think that's the level of guidance which which responsible email programs are looking for. Help us to help ourselves. And the more that mailbox providers can do in that spirit of transparency, the more the responsible senders will go, cool, thanks for that. We'll pivot, we'll tweak to, make sure we are looking like that, best practice, best in class sender that you're looking for.
Right. Just adding, if it's completely free, I would love, my personal opinion and my personal ideal wish is, I would love to have every mailbox provider be 100% consequent in saying, okay, there is no gray zone of implementing technical standards. It needs to be much more strict. So we are not talking about DMARC alignment is a great example.
Yes.
It is for domain protection, but it could be SPF alignment or DKIM alignment. Why not both? And why not strictly? And then we've got that level of technical implementation where we could move a step further and say, everyone who is squeezing his system for mass email sending that way to not go the liberal approach and do the bare minimum of achievement, who's going to the max, those ones, and those ones who authenticate themselves and commit to a certification program get inbox delivery. But they also get a cruel and hard punishment if they start tricking the system.
Correct.
And that is still the case, that and there's another myth, that some senders think, once I'm in that certification system, I've got that small key to start tricking around. And that's unfair. I think I would love to have more consequence. Now, Guy, I'm afraid it's 6:02. We spent the whole hour there. She's hello, Mike.
Hello. I don't want to interrupt you, but I think we're ready now. Or do you want to add something?
Oh, I feel
sentence?
like it's been an awesome conversation. And I think that last question is probably a good moment to wrap, because you know what I was thinking, Seb? I'm sort of staring through the office window outside and thinking, one day, hopefully in the near future, on a beautiful blue sky day, and I see a unicorn go sailing past in the sky, we will know that all is well in the world of global email deliverability, won't we?
Agree.
That's good.
Right.
But first of all, thank you, Guy, for your time today and sharing your knowledge. And of course, thank you, Zeb, for your time too today.
More than welcome.
And just a quick note for all attendees. Thank you again for your attending today, of course. And save the date for our CSA Email Summit. We're back next year. After some years, we have again our Email Summit in Cologne. Save the date, and we'll be happy to see you there. And thank you all.
Thank you very much.
It's been such a pleasure. Thanks for the invite. It's been great.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye then.